Okay, so once you get the hang of the box and the sphere, it gets a little easier to now start going through the rest of the primitives. Cylinder, I think everybody's pretty familiar with a cylinder. Draw the base, give it height. It has similar properties. Let's go to select it, modify tab. It has similar properties to the sphere on the box. It's like they had a kid. You can also use slice on this, just like you did on the sphere, where you can create a segment or a pie with a segment cut out of it. And then you can alter the parameters of your cylinder, including its segments. Caps are the top. Let's see, that's one cap segment, 2, 3, 4. Now, that's something you want to, if you're going to use a cylinder as a starting place for your model, you're going to need to think about this in advance. And that's why a lot of students don't want to do sketching, which honestly I don't understand. You need to get your ideas out of your head on paper for a variety of reasons. One is so that you can begin to, there's what you see in your head does not scale with reality when you first start doing this. Your dimensions will be, your proportions will be way off. And so you need to start sketching so that your brain can start to visualize in scale and in proportion with what you can actually create. And sketching is just it's critical to be able to start to develop those visual spatial cognitive abilities to adapt them to real world parameters. And so one of the first things you want to do with your characters, you want to start sketching them out. You want to start looking at them in terms of the parts and the pieces. Back in the videos that we talked about with the character development, you see the three-dimensional characters, the humanoid ones. I didn't, but the sketch used cylinders and spheres and boxes to start to fill out the parts and the pieces underneath the structure of the character. Same thing here. You're going to need to start thinking about those things so that when you actually go and start drawing, you will, in the machine, in 3D Studio Max, you will have a target. You won't just be like throwing things together and making adjustments and trying this and trying that. Now, in the beginning, you do need to start playing around with this just to start to get a feel for the computer. But ultimately, when you start creating a character, you need to start with a sketch. And it needs to be a sketch that has considered your parameters. Okay, so cylinder. Torus is basically a donut. You draw the donut part on the outside of the donut part, and then you draw the inside of the donut part. So the outer diameter and then the inner diameter. And if we edit that, you have the first radius is the outside, and the second radius is the inside. You can rotate this. Well, the segments. You can twist. Set that back at 0. If I can find it on my keyboard. The keyboard is not close to me. Here we go. Okay. You can adjust the number of segments and the number of sides. You can also do a slice for this, just like we have for a cylinder. That is your torus. And then you have teapot. Anybody have any idea why there's a teapot as a primitive? Because it's really not very primitive, is it? It's way more complicated and has multiple parts. In fact, if you click on it and then click on the Modify tab, you're going to see that it actually has 4 body parts. and you can turn each one of those independently on and off. You can make a sugar bowl, a mug, or teapot. So it's not primitive at all. It's actually complex. But yet, it is listed with the other primitives. The very first thing that was ever modeled inside of a computer was a teapot. And I believe they picked the teapot. I'm not 100% on this. I heard they picked the teapot because there's a joke about a teapot orbiting Mars, Jupiter, the Kuiper Belt, somewhere in the solar system. But there it is. It's a teapot. Okay? And let me show you this very quickly. This is kind of cool. As with all these other primitives, you can scale this with the Select and Scale tool to start to create other interesting forms of pottery. Teapots, often made out of pottery. Take off the lid, take off the spout. Right, so you can begin to apply modifiers to this as well to come up with different shapes of mugs, pots, jars, just by pulling up in the front view on the y-axis only. Gives me that. Very interesting. Another thing though, segments. It's a lot, but it doesn't really start to smooth out until you start to add some more segments to it. And same as all other primitives, you can add modifiers. Let's see, we've covered bend, and let's see what else we're going to talk about here very quickly. Some of the simpler ones. Let's talk about squeeze. Okay, so squeeze is a little more complicated. The first part is the amount. How much am I going to squeeze this? And then the second part is the curve. How bulbous is that squeeze? The second one is the radial squeeze, which I was going to squeeze it that direction. Actually, I like that. And then its curve, how much. And then you can set your limits, and then you have a effect balance that will allow you to stabilize it, and then control the volume. And same as all others, you can move the gizmo. Look, let me get off scale and just move. Scale the gizmo to apply. You got to click off of it, close it, to apply a different location to the squeeze, and end up with a different shape. Okay, and so this works for all your primitives. You have text, you have a cone, you have something called a geosphere. And the difference between a sphere and a geosphere is that a sphere is made up of mostly four-sided polygons, and then at the top and the bottom of the sphere, they're made up of three-sided. This entire geosphere is made up of nothing but three-sided polygons. A tube is just a hollow. Oops, I just forget which one these are until just a hollow cylinder. Pyramid, and then a plane, and we're often going to use these planes for the ground, is just a flat surface. And we will frequently use those for the ground. Modify tab. Segments on this, we're going to do a lot with the segments on this. Let's just increase this just so I can show you another modifier right quick. Okay, so there's my plane. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to add noise. There it is, noise, N-O-I-S-E. And I'm going to check fractal. And I'm going to come down here to my Z strength. And you see as I increase that, it creates terrain. Now, it's very, very rough. In order to smooth it out, I'm going to increase my scale. There we go. And it becomes a balancing act between the Z and the scale to get it to look more like rolling hills. Just got to play with it back and forth. Oh, is that maximum? No, there we go. And then you can adjust your roughness to start to create mountain peaks. Iterations will also create some texture there. So if I bring that down, you see it's kind of smoothed out my plane. And that allows you to create some interesting ground planes. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop here and we'll continue in the next video.